I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Have you ever come across a show that you've fallen in love with only to find out that it's going to be ending in a month? Well, that happened to me. I can't tell you the feelings you experience when that happens. You're happy that you've discovered this wonderful show, but then you feel devastated that it's being taken away from you. It's kind of like that feeling when you're at an ice cream buffet and then are told the buffet is going to close in 5 minutes. It sucks. So what was this show that stole my heart? What was this magical series that left me devastated when it was taken away? Eureka! To those of you who have never seen the show, I feel both sorry and envy you. I feel sorry that you've never heard of the show, but I envy you because you'll be watching it for the first time. So that means you're also going to fall in love with a town full of super gadgets, quirky characters, and some surprisingly dramatic plot twist that just came out of nowhere. The show had a simple plot. A marshal and his daughter stumble into a small, normal-looking town that turns out to be filled with super geniuses. He becomes the new sheriff and hilarity ensues. Like many great TV series, Eureka had a simple premise that gives it the freedom to experiment. Experiment. It would have episodes that were just silly fun for the first act and then just punch you in the face with this dramatic moment that came out of nowhere. I don't see that as much, if at all, today on TV. A show like this usually has an established structure. A drama can be funny at times, but at the end of the day, it's still a drama. Eureka seemed to be in this constant influx of comedy, drama, and just sci-fi fun. Fans of Eureka can attest to its quirkiness, which has made it shine and drawn in new fans over time. Every aspect of the show is just wonderful. A lot of it has to do with the cast. The actors behind these characters just bring them to life and makes you identify with them. You can tell the show was full of love. Many TV series nowadays all claim that, but few deliver. With Eureka, you felt that it was a real community, and we were glad to be able to visit this little town full of bizarre and fascinating adventures. But is the town of Eureka that timeless? Am I just exaggerating how special this show was? Should you take time out of your busy schedule to watch this series? Let's find out. And Gone, but not forgotten. Eureka was created by Andrew Cosby and Jaime Paglia. Cosby had an idea for a show called Eurekaville, which revolved around the father of a super intelligent girl. His daughter was so smart that he was constantly trying to prevent disasters that her inventions would cause. The government then comes in and offers to move the family to a town of scientists called Eurekaville. But it was only when he met Paglia that the show began to grow into something more. Paglia thought the show would be better if it was Northern Exposure meets Twin Peaks. Cosby liked the idea, and eventually the show became more like a mix of Northern Exposure, X-Files, and a pinch of Twin Peaks. The duo then pitched the show to a new network called the Sci-Fi Channel. This is back when the name of the channel was actually written correctly. I'm sorry, can I just take a minute here to say how stupid it was to change it from sci-fi to sci-fi? Okay, I get that you dropped the word channel, but do you really need to change the way you write sci-fi? Sorry, I had to say it. Okay, moving on. I mean, even the logo is dumb. Okay, breathe. Remember, it's not important. It's not important. So Eureka was picked up by the channel, and the first season ran for 12 episodes. The show hit the ground running and pulled in great ratings. It's no surprise, really. The series was in a very rare company because the pilot was actually very good. I mean, it wasn't perfect, as there were some minor adjustments to some characters and one being dropped altogether. The main plot of Eureka was about a town that was established by Albert Einstein in the 1940s. It was meant as a town where scientists could live together and learn from each other. By living with each other, they would form a close community that would foster greatness. This eventually led to present day, with super scientists inventing crazy experiments, and hence our show begins. The heart of the show was the cast. First, you have our lead, Sheriff Jack Carter, played by Colin Ferguson. Jack is a U.S. Marshal who stumbles into Eureka with his teenage daughter Zoe. Carter is an everyman, as he is constantly trying to understand the insanity of the town. Even though he's brushed off as an idiot by some of the residents of Eureka, his creativity pretty much saves the day. This is because most of the scientists are so hyper-focused on factoring all the variables that they miss the big picture. Eventually, the town begins to respect Carter and he doesn't get brushed off so easily. Jack doesn't have it easy though. It seems like any car he gets into is cursed. He also turns out to be the victim of these experiments gone wrong most of the time as well. I think the weakest character was his daughter Zoe, who was played by Jordan Hinson. For the first season, she was just a pain. She was always getting into trouble and causing friction between most of the characters and Jack. She was eventually smoothed out to not be so annoying anymore. But she was still quite dull. Jack's deputy was Joe Lupo. Joe was played by Erica Serra, and she was a badass. Lupo was a bit resentful toward Jack at first, since she was passed over from taking over as sheriff. But over time, they developed a strong friendship. They became almost like brother and sister. They would do anything for each other. Even though she was tough, Lupo could be quite sensitive at times. My favorite character, and in my opinion the best, was Dr. Henry Deacon, who was played by the hugely talented Joe Morton. Most of you know him now as Cyborg's father, Dr. Silas Stone, but he's been acting for quite a while. God, Morton has been stuck as a scientist or doctor since T2. I'm pretty sure he has a variety of lab coats at home because at this point, they've paid for themselves. But Jesus, he was so talented. I think it's because every role he's played, he's so earnest and gives it his all. There's a reason why he's won so many awards. If he ever gets a role in the right movie, he could win an Oscar. That's how good he is. Henry was Jack's best friend and confidant, but he was flawed. At the end of the first season, we learned that Henry made a choice that put the entire universe at risk, just to keep one person alive, and caused a rift between him and Carter. Henry eventually forgave Jack, but at a cost. Then we have Jack's love interest, Dr. Allison Blake, who was played by the gorgeous Salli Richardson. Allison wasn't just the love interest and exposition puppet, but a very interesting character in her own right. She was smart and not only brought out the best in Jack, but also the rest of the characters. She was empathetic toward most of the residents of Eureka, not only as a liaison for the government, but also between the residents. She humanized the antagonists and made them into deeper characters instead of just caricatures. Allison was the mother of Kevin, played by Meshach Peters, who was autistic and a genius. Of all the characters, I felt that Kevin was the one who got the short end of the stick. They could have used him in so many ways, but he wound up being the MacGuffin for most of the seasons. It's a shame because they could have done a lot with him. Sucks. But what's a good show without good antagonists? Nathan Stark was played by Ed Quinn. Stark was Allison's ex-husband, which made him bump heads with Carter quite a bit. He loved to just insult Jack and annoy him to no end. Stark was a brilliant scientist, but he was also reckless. He was head of GD, also known as Global Dynamics. GD was kind of like a Area 51. It housed a dozen top secret experiments. But most importantly, it housed the artifact. The artifact was the last remaining object from the universe before the Big Bang. Stark was obsessed with it as it held the secrets of the universe. Also, yes, Stark was based on Tony Stark. God, remember when that was an obscure reference? Those were the days. What I liked about Stark was that, like many of the other characters, he was more than just a jerk. In one episode, it's revealed that Stark created an android named Callister. Callister leaves town under mysterious circumstances. When he returns, it turns out that Stark actually sees him as a son. So when Callister dies, Stark is devastated. The comic relief of the show was Douglas Fargo. Fargo was one of the highlights of the show. He was a goofball. Even though he had high aspirations, everything always seemed to go wrong. He almost started a nuclear Armageddon when he got his own office. He got trapped in a personal force field that could only be turned off by a nuclear bomb, and he gets shot into space. In the season 2 episode, Family Reunion, Fargo's grandfather is discovered to be in a cryogenic tank. His grandfather's shocked to discover that his work's been stolen, and according to Fargo, his family name is a joke. I felt it was an episode that was a little too harsh on Fargo, basically saying that he was only working as Stark's assistant because he was a joke, and didn't have the potential for something more. At least that's what I got out of the episode. There were a lot of funny moments that involved Fargo though, specifically when it's revealed that he has a huge crush on Sarah Michelle Gellar. He wound up creating a house called Sarah.
Welcome.
Okay, what's that?
That was Sarah.
Self-actuated residential automated habitat. Sarah for short.
Fargo, is that you talking like a girl?
No.
Carter starts living there, and she ends up having some of the best moments on the show. For example, when Carter gets home late, after Sarah's already made him dinner, we have this little exchange.
Open the door!
Due to technical difficulties, I cannot visually confirm identity at this time.
Okay, listen to my voice, all right? It's me, Jack
Voice
Carter.
recognition imprint is currently offline. And in the future, when someone says they'll be home for dinner and they're running late, it's polite to call.
You're joking. You're mad at me?
Sorry, but I'm not programmed for that emotion at this time.
Later in the show, she begins a relationship with a robotic deputy called Deputy Andy. The relationship is, interesting.
Oh, I don't want to know.
I honestly don't want to know the physics of that. Eesh. During the show's run, we had many interesting characters, like Beverly Barlow, who was the villain for most of the series. We had Baltar himself, James Callis, playing one of the founders of Eureka, Dr. Trevor Grant. We also had Dr. Holly Horton, played by Felicia Day, Dr. Tess Fontana, who was played by the beautiful Jamie Ray Newman. Hey, did you know that she won an Oscar? Yeah, for producing a film called Skin. You learn something new every day. There are many more characters that come in and out of the series that I just don't have time to talk about. So I can't talk about Eureka without going over some of my favorite episodes. The first one was actually episode 3 of the first season, called Before I Forget. In it, Henry's college love Kim and her husband Jason arrive in town to work on a government project. Kim's husband is a world-famous scientist, known for having breakthroughs in many fields. But strange things begin to happen as people begin to lose time, and we soon learn that Jason is the man responsible. It's revealed that he stole an invention that Henry created that erases short-term memory. So for decades, he's been working on projects, erasing other scientists' memories, and taking credit for himself, including Kim's. It's so tragic because, as Kim puts it,
maybe I cheated on him. How many times did I catch Jason cheating on me and he made it all better?
No.
Maybe I left him. How many times did I tell Jason I'm leaving and I walk out that door and boom, none of it happened?
this is when I fell in love with Eureka. I was floored that in the 3rd episode of the first season, we had such an outstanding episode from a new TV show. Normally, it's only toward the end, sometimes the middle of a TV show, that the showrunners find their footing. But in the 3rd episode? Wow. The episode Momstrosity from season 4, episode 6 was a lot of fun. In it, Sarah accidentally creates a computer virus that suddenly makes a gigantic robotic spider emotionally attached to a baby robot.
Like a giant fucking spider shows up.
What I love about the episode is the amount of pop culture references.
Get away from him, you bitch!
Although, to be honest, I would probably do this also.
Come with me if you want to live.
Noche de Sueños is another fun episode. In the episode, the residents begin to see each other's dreams, which creates chaos. Wives see their husband's sex dreams with their co-workers, daughters see their dads naked, and secrets are revealed. I love this episode, just for a dream that involves Fargo and Joe.
Douglas Fargo, señorita.
Muchas gracias, señor Fargo.
Oh my God.
Padre Dios.
It's pretty funny how mad Joe is at Fargo until we learn that the people that have elevated levels of a body chemical called acetylcholine, try saying that 3 times fast, are the ones projecting their dreams. And it turns out that Fargo doesn't have high levels, but Joe does. So it was her dream all along. The special effects of the series were also very impressive. The show was good at using practical effects as well as computer ones. I think the best example of this is in Sight Unseen, where Carter accidentally becomes infected with an experimental formula and begins to turn invisible. Then there are the practical effects, like when Carter is submerged in a tank full of gel. Colin Ferguson said the effect was just water between two pieces of glass. This is because they couldn't afford a real tank. This is amazing considering it was such a simple effect. But there was one aspect of the show that I just hated. Well, rather one character, Zane Donovan, played by Niall Matters. God, I hated this guy. He was the bad boy character. You know what I'm talking about. The rebel who comes into town and just causes all kinds of trouble. They paired him off with Joe as a love interest. I hated it. I just felt they had no chemistry, especially when compared to Allison and Jack. They just didn't set up a reason as to why Joe would fall for him. The way they presented it was Zane comes to town, they have some stupid dialogue for a bit, and Joe just falls for him. Which makes no sense, considering how Joe was so guarded about her feelings. It could have worked, but they just didn't execute it correctly. So it just poisoned the well for me, and I just hated Zane. Another problem with the show was that it would change every season. Some season changes were awesome, like in season 4, where the cast goes back in time and accidentally changes the present. This led to some great episodes, but other seasons did not fare so well, like in season 3 where Stark is ousted as the head of GD, and is replaced by a fixer named Eva Thorne, who was such a boring character. She was the bad guy for the season, and had a pretty lame storyline. They also killed Stark. Ed Quinn was not happy on the show at this point. He loved the character, but there were a lot of problems between the showrunners, the network, and broken promises. Quinn claims that Stark was supposed to spin off as the lead of another great show called Warehouse 13, and he just felt that Stark wasn't being well written. You can tell in interviews that he loved playing the character and acting with the rest of the cast, but he was heartbroken. The showrunners approached him and asked him if he wanted to leave. Quinn was contracted for 5 seasons. So he proposed that he would get a few episodes in season 3 and that Stark would die a hero, which is what happened. Still, the door was left open for his character to come back if the showrunners wanted him. He did return for one episode in season 4 called The X-Files. It was a really funny episode in which Jack hallucinates Stark and has some really laugh out loud moments. But all great things must come to an end. Eureka was cancelled in season 5. Even though the fans were promised a 6th season with 6 episodes to wrap up the show, Syfy reneged and just gave season 5 one extra episode. It sucked, but the reason given for the cancellation was that the budget was just too expensive. Showrunner Amy Berg said that Syfy considered Eureka its golden child and fought really hard against the decision, but Comcast would not budge. So, Eureka closed its doors, to the disappointment of its fans. The cast is still working today. Some have had bigger careers than others. Joe Morton, as you know, had a large and vital role in Zack Snyder's Justice League, as well as working on shows like God Friended Me and The Politician. Salli Richardson has done voice work in animation, appeared on TV shows like Black Lightning, but most impressively directed a few episodes of incredible shows like American Gods and Altered Carbon. So, should the show come back? Well, I can only dream. It would be amazing to see the town once again. With the way that science has developed since then, there are countless stories ready to be told. But this only seems to be a pipe dream, as there has been no interest on the part of Syfy. Eureka is set apart for not only having great stories, special effects, and characters, but also creating a town that feels like a real community that led fans to be a part of it. It's a shame that it's no longer on TV, but all seasons are available to watch on Amazon Prime at no extra cost to its users. If you can, I would highly suggest that you binge it, because if you do, you'll have a chance of being in a wacky and fascinating community of a small little town full of adventure. Thanks for watching the show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our JoBlo's video channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all our latest videos. We're an independent company that appreciates all your support. And I'll see you next time for our next episode of Gone But Not Forgotten.